Let's talk about how to break free from one of the most powerful forces in our modern lives, that constant nagging need for online validation. It really is time to stop letting your audience's preferences pull your strings.
You know that feeling, right? You post the perfect photo, you hit share, and what's the very next thing you do? Yeah, you start that compulsive refresh, don't you? One like, two likes, you feel that little rush. But what if it's been 10 minutes and all you're hearing is, well, crickets? That great feeling can turn into a pit in your stomach real fast. When that happens, you've accidentally done something pretty huge. You've basically handed over your sense of self-worth to a piece of code. If a post does well, you feel on top of the world. If it flops, you feel like a total failure. Your mood is no longer your own. It belongs to the algorithm. All right, so let's really dig into this. In this first part, we're going to unpack what it actually means to be a puppet to the algorithm and, why we have this deep need for digital approval in the first place. And this, right here, is the core of the problem. When the number of likes or comments has the power to make your day amazing or totally miserable, you've lost your emotional independence. You're just living in a state of reaction, always at the mercy of these numbers you can't even really control.
Now look, this feeling isn't just you being too sensitive or anything like that. It actually has a name, and just understanding it is the first real step to fixing it. So let's get into the psychology behind these puppet strings.
The official term is contingent self-esteem. It just means your self-worth is contingent, or, dependent on what other people think. It's when you need that external feedback, those likes, that praise, just to feel good about yourself. And without it, your self-esteem just tanks. And this really lays out the two different paths you can take. Over on the left, you've got the external validator, always emotionally unstable, reactive, basically a puppet. But on the right, that's the goal, the internal validator, someone who's content, stable, proactive. They're the artist, not the puppet. So why is the cycle so ridiculously hard to break? Why do we keep going back for more, even when we know it makes us feel anxious? Well, the answer is literally in our brain chemistry. Let's take a look at the science of why we get so hooked. And this explains it perfectly. It's because social media platforms are built on something called a variable reward schedule. Think about that. It's the exact same psychological trick that keeps a gambler glued to a slot machine, pulling that lever over and over, just hoping for a jackpot. It all creates this thing we can call the digital dopamine loop. It's a simple four-step cycle. First, you post something, and you expect a reward. Second, you start checking. Third, a notification pops up, ding, and your brain gets a tiny little hit of dopamine, that pleasure chemical. But, and this is the most important part, step 4, the reward is totally unpredictable. Sometimes you get a flood of likes, other times nothing. That inconsistency is precisely what makes it so addictive. You just keep checking, chasing that next dopamine hit. Okay, but here's the good news. You are not doomed to be a puppet forever. You can absolutely cut the strings. This next part is all about the strategy. How to shift your focus inward and start finding your own internal compass. The key concept, the real game changer here, is developing what's called an internal locus of control. It's a massive mindset shift. Instead of looking outside for validation, you start generating it from within. You decide your worth, not some algorithm. You become the source of your own stability. So how do you actually do it? Well, it all starts with a conscious decision to disconnect your self-worth from that little device in your pocket. You have to reconnect it to things that actually matter to you. Your values, your principles, your passions. The goal is to find a sense of contentment that has nothing to do with stats, which of course leads to the most liberating step of all. You start making things that you genuinely love. So let's bring this all home. Let's look at how this builds into a powerful new mindset, especially for anybody out there who creates things and puts them out into the world. I love this analogy. Think of yourself as a performer on a stage. If you're a puppet, you're constantly peeking through the curtain, right? Counting how many people are in the audience. If the seats are full, great, you'll perform. If they're empty, you feel like a failure. But an artist, someone who's found their internal compass, they perform for the love of the dance itself. The joy comes from the act of creation, not from the applause.
So the whole point is this: your own passion has to be your guide, not the audience's changing tastes. Real freedom, both creatively and emotionally, is found the second you stop looking through that curtain for approval and just start creating from a place of joy and conviction.
And that really just leaves us with one last essential question to think about. I want you to imagine the algorithm didn't exist. Imagine there were no stats to check, no numbers to chase. What would you make then? What would you want to share?
What will you create when the only like that truly matters is your own?